Live stream. It's been a while. It's been a while. We are going to talk about the retirement of Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. I will take questions. We will do a whole bunch of stuff. I don't even know when the last time I did a live stream was. I was doing them pretty frequently for a while, and then, I don't know, just interest kind of waned, I thought. And why do it if people aren't interested? But I'm back. And we're going to do it. We're going to do the thing. So we will, I'll get to people's questions, and we've got plenty of time today, plenty of time to discuss. And it's actually kind of a horrible day politically. I'll talk about the implications of Anthony Kennedy, and it's bad. I try to put a positive spin on everything when possible. It's hard to put a positive spin on the Anthony Kennedy retirement, but we'll see if maybe we can find something not completely disastrous about it. I don't know. If this is your first live stream, and for many of you it may be because it's been a while since I've done live streams. Number one, these are really live. Unlike the clips that we upload, these are actually live unless you're watching this an archive video on a replay. I will take your questions. The best way, we've toyed around with different ways to take questions during these. The normal chat goes by really quickly. So I will remind you that you can use Super Chat to send questions or to make comments. I will read them. I will answer. I will react to them. Also, any new members and patrons who sign up during the live streams, you get a shout out from me. I'll sing your praises. I will say great things about you. They may not be true, but I will say them anyway. And please don't troll the live chat, okay? We do have moderators. Obvious trolling is going to get you banned. I will do it. The moderators will do it. Somebody will do it. And number 5, become a sponsor. And we are part of the YouTube sponsorship beta. This will also make it so that when you type in normal chats, they will look differently. So like if they will look different. If I type a test, you see that David Pakman Show looks different in the chat. YouTube sponsors also are identified, highlighted in the regular chat. I see Lisa Hamilton already asking very negative questions. Did the David Pakman Show lose subscribers? No, we didn't. We've got 475,000 now, which is more than ever before, and very quickly going to 500,000. Okay, so we will get the questions. I will get to all of that stuff sooner than later. But we've got to start by talking about what's going on with Justice Anthony Kennedy. We got the, quite frankly, very bad news today that Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy is going to be retiring. And you know, the primary reason why this is bad is because Donald Trump now gets to choose a replacement. And Anthony Kennedy has been a moderate vote on the Supreme Court. Anthony Kennedy has voted in favor of marriage equality. He has been a voice in favor of legal abortion. And it is not in any way overstating the impact of Anthony Kennedy's retirement and inevitable replacement with a truly ideological, hardcore, right-wing conservative justice that Roe v. Wade is now in question. Gay rights, could they be in question? Well, along the religious freedom lines, gay rights could be in question. This is really, really bad. And it's particularly upsetting to me because I was getting messages from people on the left during the 2016 election saying, David, it doesn't matter whether it's Trump or Hillary. It makes no difference whether it's Trump or Hillary because they are both status quo elected official types. It doesn't make a difference one way or the other who you vote for. And some people on the left didn't vote at all as a result. Some people on the left voted third party in states where the results were not a guarantee. And they insisted Trump, Hillary, doesn't matter. Burn it all down. And now we have to deal with the real consequences that by picking Neil Gorsuch, which, by the way, shouldn't even have been a selection, right? I mean, Merrick Garland should have been confirmed. This idea that in the last year, you just don't do anything. If it's under Obama, you want to give people a chance to vote. It's ridiculous. But they did it and they won. And now Donald Trump gets to select a replacement for Anthony Kennedy, and this will have an impact beyond Donald Trump's lifetime, unless he ends up living to 200 like that doctor said he could if he just improved his diet a little bit. Hillary Clinton would not be even considering replacing Anthony Kennedy with somebody who might vote to overturn Roe v. Wade, for somebody who might become or will become a stalwart and steadfast right-wing voice on the Supreme Court. So I'm particularly sickened thinking back to the Bernier busters who were insisting that there simply is no point in voting for Hillary or Trump, that they're both throwaway votes because they are votes for the status quo. Could not be further from the truth. Could not be further from the truth. And we are now going to have to deal with that, and it is sickening. And if anybody is not sickened, then you're not paying attention, because this is going to be a win for corporations. We know that the Supreme Court historically sides more often with corporations than with individuals when you have cases that involve corporate power versus individual power. That's going to get worse. We know that the Supreme Court will often err on the side of allowing bad things to be done to individuals by corporations unless there are very clear-cut cases where that needs to be changed. And that is going to get even worse under whoever it is that Donald Trump selects. So this is a disaster. Is there any silver lining? Is there any way in which this is not as bad as it could be? I don't know. I'm having trouble thinking of a way. I'm having trouble imagining how this could possibly be worse, because you are going to have in Donald Trump a president who is completely unqualified and lacks knowledge even on the most basics of economics, trade, geopolitics, social issues. I mean, really, it's hard to think of someone who knows less. And he is now going to get the opportunity to select a second Supreme Court justice, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg would probably be the next to retire, and it may happen during Donald Trump's first term. I think that it's possible Trump gets reelected. We talked about that on the program extensively. Very likely, becomes overwhelmingly likely that Trump would get 3 or maybe even a 4th Supreme Court pick if he is reelected. So what we can count on is, here's like a possible silver lining on this. Maybe Trump's replacement of Anthony Kennedy with a just vile right-winger will inspire people to vote them out in November. And I've been increasingly concerned that because of hyper-normalization, initially when Trump was elected, you had interest very high from the left, the marches, the activism, everything. And because we're now used to 5 scandals a week, interest has sort of slowly been waning. And I am extraordinarily worried that even though Democrats have an opportunity to take over the House in November, have an opportunity to take over the Senate in November, I am skeptical that it's going to happen. And by saying this, what you should read from it is not, well, let's forget about November. It's, I've got to make sure to vote. I've got to make sure to get people registered to vote. That is the one and only path forward. And I just can't even imagine. It's hard to even understand the magnitude, particularly if Donald Trump chooses someone who's younger, someone in their early 50s, even potentially somebody in their 40s to replace Anthony Kennedy. You are talking about an impact on our country that will last potentially a generation or longer. And people know that I am not one of these I'm going to move to Canada types. First of all, I understand that it's really difficult to move to Canada as much as we might sometimes like to. I have never participated in the, if X, I'll move to Canada, if Bush is reelected, I'll move to Canada, or any of that stuff. I've just not done it. But I would be lying if I didn't tell you that over the last several weeks, I have started to have real sort of thoughts about not, I'm going to in protest move, right? It wouldn't be a protest thing. But I start thinking about, we've got the sort of suggestion from Trump of skipping the Constitution when it comes to undocumented immigrants. We've got this decidedly authoritarian move. You've got a guy who is deliberately, seemingly deliberately, or at least recklessly, ruining relationships with longtime American allies. I have started to think about, well, what would it be like if for some period of time I moved somewhere else. My options basically are Argentina and Israel, right? Those are my two options. I think I've told the story before of how my family, because my family left Poland shortly before World War II, we would hypothetically be able to get Polish passports, which confer EU privileges. But because the birth certificate of my Polish grandfather was misplaced during World War II, that's a difficult thing. It's actually a conversation I'm having with people. I'm having the conversation with people in my life. I'm having the conversation with friends and family, because that's actually how bad it is getting. And I know that there are people in the audience also who are not in the let's move to Canada thing, who are just genuinely horrified by what it is that's going on. And the Supreme Court thing is going to be an absolute and total disaster. There is no other way around it. And I hate to break it to you, because since day one of the Trump administration, I have been sort of optimistic that now that people get it, now that people understand the magnitude of these elections, that support of independent media has escalated. And that was true for a while. After Trump's election, shows like mine and others that are similar to mine, that have presences on YouTube and other social media, we've seen an increase in financial contributors. We've seen an increase in traffic. It's all just been going way, way up. Demonetization hit on YouTube. We had another massive wave of supporters that came in, the rallies, the activism. It was abundantly clear why this was a time to be active. And in April, last month, in May, our support has started to wane a little bit. A lot of those people that signed up for year memberships in April and May of 2017 have been choosing not to renew them in May of 2018. I've spoken to other hosts that I'm sure you know, but because they didn't say you can mention my name, I'm not going to mention their names. Other hosts are seeing the same thing. Some of the support that we gained early in the Trump presidency has started to fade. And I believe that there is a hyper-normalization that's going on. People get accustomed to the fact that there are scandals every day, essentially, every week, if not every day. People are getting accustomed to the authoritarian slide. And this is how authoritarianism really takes hold, which is not from one day to the next. With media attacks, it's the development of the term fake news, singling out individual media outlets, talking about requiring journalism licenses, whatever that would even mean, starting to talk about other ways to suppress critical voices in media. And over time, people become desensitized to this concerted attack on a free press, which is one of the institutions of the United States of America that actually serves as a check and balance when it works appropriately, not when it's co-opted by corporate interests, against government power. People are forgetting. And I talked about it earlier on in the program. We've seen our Patreon numbers, I'm sure you've noticed, trickling down. We have seen what was initially a big upswing in the number of YouTube sponsors level out and start to trickle. Other shows are experiencing it. And we're going to do everything we can to be bigger than ever. But I am concerned about, because when you don't see progressive independent media supported, that makes me think that interest in voting in November is also not going to be there. That makes me think that activating against the Trump administration is going to start waning. So I'm concerned. I'm significantly concerned about what is going on, and I'm obviously, I hope that I'm wrong, right? I hope that this is some kind of temporary thing. I hope that it is just a brief problem that shows like ours are experiencing, but everybody's saying the exact same thing. And that is extraordinarily concerning to me. Let me get to some of the super chats and different things that are going on. As a reminder, if this is my first live stream in a while, if this is your first live stream, they're really live unless you're watching a replay. If you have questions for me, I try to follow the chat, but it is hard because it moves pretty quickly. Use super chat to send comments and ask questions, and I will get to them. If you are so kind as to sign up for a membership or make a pledge on Patreon while we are doing the stream, then I will give you a shout out and sing your praises, and that will be a really good thing. And please don't troll the chat. I'm seeing that there is some trolling going on. There's a couple people who have already been banned, that's just don't do it. It's not funny and it's not fun, and it's sad that people waste their time trolling. And lastly, we are now part of the YouTube sponsorship beta, so that is something else that you can do if you want to support our work. Okay, Steve Braun sent a $5 super chat, as you can see up there, asking, what do you think about Ocasio being a democratic social, a DSA, and that the DSA identifies as anti-capitalist? Well, listen, I am for social democracy, right? I've been very clear that I am not a socialist. I have no problem debunking failed talking points about socialism, but I've been very clear that what I think is the best system is one that allows for the rewards of innovation and entrepreneurship, because I believe incredibly strongly that entrepreneurship is a driving force of innovation in Western democracies. But I believe that in exchange for that system and the ability to do entrepreneurship and build successful businesses, it is a moral imperative and it is an economic imperative to have very well-funded social safety nets. So that's where I come down. I am in favor of social democracy. Means you can build a really big business and you can be very successful if that's your thing. But at the same time, if it's not, regardless of what job you choose to have, regardless even if you choose not to have a job, we should be providing health care. We should be ensuring that education is strong, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's my view, and I think people by and large know that I am not a socialist. I don't really, I'm not concerned in any way that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez identifies as part of DSA as a democratic socialist. The truth is that the United States is not at even remote risk of becoming a socialist nation. And to the extent that a democratic socialist can lobby for stronger social welfare programs and a safety net, I think it's absolutely fantastic. There is too much lack of diversity. Democrats and Republicans exist within a pretty narrow scope in the House and Senate. Yes, you've got Republicans increasingly extreme, but you have very few true progressive leftists that are elected officials. And though I'm not a democratic socialist myself, I am not concerned whatsoever. I think it's a great thing, and I look forward to seeing if indeed she wins the general election, what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez does. Now, my caveat is, and I'm not afraid to say this, and she's welcome on the program anytime, and we can talk policy, I have not been hugely impressed by her ability to go deep on policy. Okay, so I know that she has run on a number of different, positions, Medicare for all, abolishing ICE, right? So I've seen the list of positions. I've not been dramatically impressed with her ability to go into depth about lots of those issues, and I welcome the opportunity to be proven wrong, and she's welcome on my program absolutely anytime. Okay, another super chat that came in from NinjaxX. David, give me your straight opinion. How bad is Justice Kennedy's announcement? Well, I opened the live stream with that. It's really bad. It's really bad. And I can't think of how to sugarcoat it, but it is extraordinarily bad. The timing could not be worse. Donald Trump could end up with 3 or maybe even 4 picks for the Supreme Court by the time that it's all said and done, and it is absolutely atrocious. This is a guy who has been the, quote, moderate vote, and he has voted the right way a number of times. He voted the right way on banning state-level bans on same-sex marriage. He has been a defender of at least some access to abortion services for women. And what you will basically see once Kennedy is replaced with a lunatic religious right ideologue, what you're going to see is John Roberts become the swing vote. And that is the stuff of nightmares. I mean, absolutely, totally stuff of nightmares. Another super chat from Sinister Minister, who says the next American Civil War begins with Trump. Yeah, I saw a poll today which said something along the lines of some crazy percentage of the country predicted civil war or even wanted it. I don't remember exactly. I bookmarked it to look at for tomorrow. Listen, I'm not going to predict civil war, but the country, we always hear the country is as divided as ever. This feels like a slightly different type of division. I'm not saying it's the worst it's ever been or it's not as bad as it's ever been. What I'm saying is there's a different tone and tenor to the division that we're seeing right now. I hope that there is no such civil war, but I think that the division is of a different type than what we've seen for a while. Rich Parada sent a $5 super chat. Thank you, Rich, saying, if Democrats take over the House, Senate, and presidency, what's the chance of establishing term limits for the House, Senate, and Supreme Court? Almost nothing, Rich. Almost nothing. I've talked about how I would actually be in favor of term limits for the House, Senate, and the Supreme Court. There are different reasons why I think it makes sense for the House and Senate and why it makes sense for the Supreme Court. The overlap being that lifetime appointments and the ability to be reelected indefinitely do impact the accountability that people have. And I know that you often hear, well, we don't want, if judges are elected, then they make decisions for political reasons to get reelected. That's true. But if there's simply a limit as to how long you can be on the Supreme Court, you actually have freedom to make the decisions you think are right, because either way, you're out. And I think that that would be a really good thing. But unfortunately, Rich, it's not going to happen because, as I've said before, one of the most disgusting talking points and misinformation that we saw around the 2016 election was Hillary and Trump are the same. Hillary and Trump doesn't make a difference who you vote for. We're seeing the difference right now, okay? Donald Trump got himself bamboozled by Kim Jong-un. Hillary Clinton wouldn't have. Donald Trump is going to appoint a second disgusting religious right ideologue to the Supreme Court, who potentially would even vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. Hillary Clinton would not have done that. So the idea that there is no difference, there is multi-generational impact based on the difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and it is called the Supreme Court. And I know that there are people out there who like to say, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, the Supreme Court is truly controlled by who is in the Senate, because we saw Merrick Garland obstructed by Mitch McConnell, and that's actually what matters. Well, yeah, that makes a difference, but ultimately, if you're not selected by the president, you don't become a Supreme Court justice, and whoever is going to be suggested by Trump as the replacement to Hillary Clinton, to Anthony Kennedy, is not someone who would have even had a shot if we had President Hillary Clinton. I had major problems with Hillary. I voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary, right? I'm not hiding any of the problems with Hillary. But anybody who is insisting that they are the same or would have been the same, you could not be more wrong. You could not be more wrong. Justin Rosado sent a $2.99 super chat asking, is there any chance that Congress can reject this? I assume you mean reject the ability for Donald Trump to replace Anthony Kennedy. I believe that if Democrats can filibuster, they should, and they should say, we should at least wait until the midterms before we do any hearings, because Republicans rather said when Obama nominated Merrick Garland, we've only got a year left in the presidency. Let's let people vote before we do any changes to the Supreme Court. I think Democrats would be completely accurate in saying, well, we've only got 4 months at this point, 4 months and a few days until the midterm elections. We're not doing anything until then. And then if they do take over the House and Senate, then do everything they can to block the nomination. Will they do it? Probably not. Probably not. I don't think that they're going to do it. Night Builders is a new sponsor on YouTube. Thank you, Night Builders. And please make a comment in the chat, because now all YouTube sponsors in the chat are designated in a particular way. I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's our icon that we have uploaded. So please say hello in the chat, Night Builders, and thanks for becoming a sponsor. We have another super chat from Izzy Sanchez Jr., who has sent a $5 super chat, asks, would the ballooning debt under Trump can be used to push for a blue wave this November? No. And the reason why is as follows. Number one, the debt is a political football, and we've discussed modern monetary theory, and the actual amount of debt is not actually that politically relevant, and it's not that economically relevant, but it is a political football. Typically, it is Democrats who believe in increases to the debt being justifiable, increases to the deficit, rather, being justifiable if the money is being used in an economically stimulative way. And normally it's the Republicans who say, under no circumstances do we increase the deficit, under no circumstances do we focus on anything economically other than paying off the national debt. And of course, they're hypocrites because George W. Bush blew up the deficit and Donald Trump is blowing it up. But I do not believe that that is a winning issue for Democrats, particularly because I don't think it's a good political issue at all. Most people don't actually understand debt and deficit. And given what we're learning based on modern monetary theory, I just don't think it's the hill to die on for Democrats. So no, unfortunately, Izzy, I don't think that that is going to be a winning strategy for a blue wave. I think the winning strategy for the blue wave is here are the policy issues that will be the priority of Democrats from 2018 to 2020. Impeachment, I don't think, should be one of them, and I've explained why. I'm not saying Trump shouldn't be impeached. I'm just saying I wouldn't run on impeachment if I were Democrats, and we'll dig into that a little more in the next couple weeks. David Moss sent a $2 super chat. Thoughts on Dave Rubin's last interview with Joe Rogan? I only saw a little bit, and what I saw was really bad, okay? It's like, I think it was a 3-hour interview. I just don't have time to watch a 3-hour interview, unfortunately. I'm not bragging about being busy. I think that's not something to brag about, but I just don't have time to watch a 3-hour interview. The portion that people sent me was when Dave Rubin, there were 2 portions that were just really not good, and I'd love to talk to Dave Rubin about this anytime. He's welcome on the show anytime, and it's not, I don't think he's a bad person for making these arguments. I just think he's wrong. He was arguing against government regulation on the basis, using home builders as an example, which is just a disastrous example because actually not enough regulation on home builders has led to absolute disasters for homeowners. So it was just an embarrassingly bad example. And then number 2, it was a section about the government not being good at doing things, and he used some example about UPS, USPS, and shipping live baby chickens, and it was just a total implosion. I mean, just absolute total implosion. And he was all sweaty during it, and I don't know if he was sweaty because he was getting nervous at how bad the implosion was, or maybe Joe Rogan keeps his studio really hot, but it was not good. It was not a good thing, and that's all I saw of it. And it's possible that there were other parts that were really good, but I didn't see them. I want to say thanks to Jordan Barnard, who just increased their Patreon contribution from $1 a month to $2 a month. I also want to say thanks to Timothy Carr. Timothy Carr just pledged $2 a month on Patreon at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Let me mention, this is actually a good opportunity to mention, we have something pretty interesting going on with Patreon. What we're doing with Patreon in order to, so I've mentioned that it has gotten bad on Patreon. We've actually, a lot of shows like ours have lost quite a bit of support on Patreon, and a lot of this I think has to do with sort of political fatigue as well as hyper-normalization of daily scandals. So what we're doing is when we get to 2,000 patrons, I am going to be playing a live game of chess against producer Pat and producer Max. I'm not very good at chess, but I do enjoy playing it. So the idea is once we get to 2,000 patrons, we're at about 1,873, actually 1,875 right now, we're going to do that live stream. And I will actually make an offer to you tonight. If we get to 1,900 patrons before the end of the stream, so that's just 25 more patrons, I will actually play a game or 2 of chess for you on the stream tonight, just to show you my skill level, at the risk of significantly embarrassing myself. I will play a game or 2 of chess on leechess.org. So let's, by all means, help us. Let's get those contributions in. I would love to play a game of chess or 2 and embarrass myself this evening. And also, I want to mention that the other way that you can get a big thank you during the stream is if you sign up at davidpakman.com/membership. That is the number one funding source for the show. If you've never heard of it, we really do depend on that funding. You can also use a coupon code VOTESOON18. It'll save you 40%. You save 40%. You get 100% of the benefits. And I will also shout you out during the live stream. So a couple ways to be mentioned. All of them support the work that we do and offer stands. If we get to 2,000 patrons tonight, I'll pull up and play a couple games of chess and significantly embarrass myself. $5 super chat from PDX Pro Courier Tips and Tricks. David, if you were religious, would you think Trump is the Antichrist or realistic equivalent? I don't even know how to answer that because it's just that's not my worldview. That's not how I see the world. It's not how I think about things. So, I mean, religious or not, my humanist values enable me to see that Trump is an abomination, period, right? And I don't know that any kind of religious interpretation or worldview would necessarily change that. But I'm not religious, so I guess I'm probably not the right person to answer that. Let me take a look through the regular chat. Don't want to ignore people. Let's see if there's any questions there that might be important for me to answer. A couple of people saying, David, why do you hate the Green Party? I don't hate the Green Party. I think Jill Stein is not a good candidate. I don't think that she would make a good president, period. I think the Green Party has had too many dances with just genuinely really bad ideas. At one point, having federal funding for homeopathy on their platform. I think the Green Party has... I will be charitable and say they probably have good intentions, but I don't see the future of progressivism in the Green Party. Don't hate it. Don't hate Green Party voters. I just don't see the future of progressivism there. Let's see what else is going on in the regular chat. David, you should go on the Joe Rogan program. I would go on any time. I actually did make contact with Joe's producer at one point and was basically given like a we'll let you know type of thing. And I haven't heard from them since, but I would be willing to be on absolutely any time. What else do we have? A lot of comments, not seeing a lot of specific questions there, but I'll go back and check it out. Homeopathy is insane. Race IQ is just racism. Trump is a fascist. I don't think Trump is a fascist. Trump is more of a corporate statist. Trump would like to be sort of an authoritarian fascist, but I think Trump is more of a corporate statist where you see this even more corrosive than in normal capitalism bedfellowship of government and corporations. That's what I see more than anything else. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Steve Braun, what's the difference between Germany and teabag? The teabag isn't bitter when it's taken out of the cup. How excited were you about Argentina today? So if you don't know, I'm from Argentina. I'm not an American, but I'm not Mexican. Today's Patriot Mail misinterpreted me being Argentinian as me being Mexican, which I'm not. I'm Argentinian. It's a different country. I thought it was over for Argentina. Argentina tied their first game in the World Cup against Iceland. Not a good start if you're supposed to be one of the top 4 teams in the World Cup. Then lost, I believe it was 3-0 in the end to Croatia. Absolutely disastrous. And then was able to pull out a win against Nigeria, and now will face France in the first round of the tournament style, the single elimination portion of the World Cup. I was hugely, hugely excited. And to be honest, I have no problem with the German people or with the country of Germany. Germany always gets out of trouble with some last-minute goal, and I was glad to see Germany eliminated from the World Cup today. First time since 1938. Think about what was going on in Germany in 1938, that Germany doesn't advance beyond group play. So yeah, Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, I will be very, very excitedly watching the World Cup. A couple new thank yous I want to do. I want to thank, Patreon. Well, a lot of new Patreon patrons all of a sudden. On Patreon, Ripa Milila, I'm butchering your name, I apologize, has made a pledge of $1 a month. Thank you. Hayden Ellison has made a pledge of $1 a month on Patreon. Andrew Jones has made a pledge of $2 a month on Patreon. And Ripa says, greetings from Finland. I am going to Finland in September. Okay, I am so excited about this, Ripa. I am going to be going to Helsinki in September. It's going to be part of when we do David Pakman Show sort of summer vacation, although it'll be closer to fall. I am going to be in Helsinki. I will be over in Tallinn, Estonia, and I'm just so excited. I've heard great things about Finland. If you have recommendations about what is worth doing in Helsinki, not going to have time to get out of the city, but I do look forward to checking out Helsinki. So as I mentioned, if we get to 1,900 patrons during the stream, I will play a couple games of chess live for you. You will see me more than likely get embarrassed because I'm not good, but we can consider it sort of training for when we get to 2,000 patrons and we do our live David Pakman Show chess tournament, where I will play on a live stream a game of chess against producer Pat and producer Max, playing jointly. Because as bad as I am, they play even less than I do. So that's the idea. Let's get to the 1,900 and then I'll do it. Okay, a few more super chats here. Ace Tanaka sent a $10 super chat. Hey, Dave, as an ex-Moonie, meaning the Unification Church, I just wanted to know your thoughts on the movement. Also, I appreciate you and other progressives for helping me change my beliefs to secularism. Yeah, I don't know that much about the Moonies and the Unification Church. I know that it is a cult-like, if not a cult. I think it's okay to say it's a cult, but maybe not, so I'll say cult-like. I know that they had a bizarre ceremony recently where they had some kind of commitment ceremony to their AR-15 style rifles, and it's not an organization that I would want anything to do with, and I'm glad that you found your way out of it, Ace. Very, very good. Ricky Soulless sent a $5 super chat saying, LOL at that water slurp. Was it audible? It was audible. It was audible. I apologize for that. Matthew Griffin, $5 super chat. Would you be interested in debating race versus IQ on your show? I hate the cause correlation argument. Would love to see you debate more in general. You know, I'm not an expert on race and IQ, right? We did a heavily researched piece on race and IQ. And I came to the audience with that, and I've interviewed people about race and IQ, but really it's experts on race and IQ that should be debating it. So I don't know that I'm actually the right person for it. Joe Rader has sent a $5 super chat. Thank you, David. Your live stream came on just as I was preparing my home chef meal. Great talk, great eats. Thanks. All right. Well, very good. Sounds delicious. Brandon Roach sent a $5 super chat. With Justice Anthony Kennedy retiring, do you feel there is a risk of any current progress with LGBTQ rights being reversed? Yeah, I do. I think that we are at risk of Roe v. Wade being overturned once Donald Trump replaces Anthony Kennedy with a total and vile ideologue. I think that LGBTQ right progress also is at risk. I think that corporate power is going to be escalated even further by whoever it is that Donald Trump chooses to replace Anthony Kennedy with, and it's bad. It's going to be really, really bad. Jonathan Loomis sends a $5 super chat saying, Mitch McConnell is a world-class hypocrite. Twitter should not be allowed any judicial nominees while he is under investigation for obstruction. There's actually that I think that's a tough one to make because ultimately it is McConnell's responsibility to decide on confirmation hearings, but ultimately it's really the president who decides who is going to be nominated to the Supreme Court. I think that if you want to make that case, you make the case that while the president's entire administration is under investigation for possibly really serious crimes related to the 2016 election, that would be a reason for a moratorium on Supreme Court picks. But I say it as a thought experiment. I mean, it's totally academic at this point because it's just not going to happen. I do want to say thank you to a new David Pakman Show member. Membership is such a great thing. We have been disproportionately supported by membership for years on the program, and every time we get a new member, I get an email, and it is just the most inspiring moment of the day when we get new members. Guillaume Rochefort has become a David Pakman Show member. Guillaume has used the coupon code VOTESOON18, meaning Guillaume has saved 40% off of his membership. The reason, why would you want to become a member? The reason you would want to become a member is that membership confers a number of great benefits, including the daily bonus show, including daily 1-hour commercial-free David Pakman Show episodes instead of waiting for those 5 to 7 minute YouTube clips to be released each day. And you're supporting our work. You're supporting independent media. You're supporting the expansion of the show. You're supporting the fact that we have recently cut down the amount of commercials during every hour of the David Pakman Show. So those are pretty damn good reasons to me to become a David Pakman Show member. And anybody else who signs up during the stream, I will give a shout out to and thank. A couple other things that we have coming up on the program. The Pseudoscience miniseries is going to start being released at the end of next week. If you've not heard about the Pseudoscience miniseries, we're publishing a teaser episode later this week. Members already got access to that teaser episode. And the Pseudoscience miniseries will be a 12-part breakdown of 12 different pseudosciences. They will include homeopathy. They will include psychics. They will include astrology. And I actually am kind of worried a little bit about the impact that this miniseries is going to have, because the preview episode that we released is the one on ESP, extrasensory perception. And I actually heard from some angry people saying, David, it's real. ESP is real and psychics are real. So I do think that this, unfortunately, is going to be a mini-series that is well received by many. Well, almost knocked my water over. But also is going to anger a bunch of people. And you know what? I have never shied away from doing content the way I want to do it because it might upset somebody. We don't allow ourselves to be taken hostage for financial support. And we're going to do every story the way we want to do that story. Nicholas Shaw sent a $2 super chat. Thank you. Parker sent a $2 super chat. Chess, what a nerd. Love the show, David. Yeah, so I mentioned that I have been playing some chess, and apparently there are tons of chess players in the audience. And as a result, we said when we get to 2,000 patrons, we will do some chess matches. And the first one will be a live stream where I will play against Producer Pat and Producer Max. I also said that if we get to 1,900 patrons tonight during the live stream, I will play a game or two of chess. And for your, I guess, viewing pleasure, we are at 1,879 patrons. We started the evening at 1873. We're at 1879. If we get 21 more patrons, I will play a game or two of chess for you. But it's going to have to happen kind of quickly. I do want to thank Brandon Roach, who just became a patron. But we do not have unlimited time. Actually, the reason is that I have to work on tomorrow's show. David Moss says, is there a policy where you are right-wing on? I can't think of one. I can't think of a policy where I am right-wing. Right-wing being defined, of course, as either conservative or reactionary, I guess. Or against progress for the sake of being against progress. I don't know. No, I can't think of any, David. I want to thank Sandy Klausner. Sandy Klausner has become a YouTube sponsor. GR has made an appearance. $2 super chat saying, Pack DZ, I love you. Long time, no heckle. Love GR. GR is a really great guy, and GR did something a little while ago where he donated a whole bunch of memberships to David Pakman Show viewers who couldn't afford them. And it was a really great thing. And a few people in David Pakman Show history have done it. Few have done more for the David Pakman Show than GR, who always shows up with the super chats, shows up with donated memberships, and all sorts of great ways to support the work that we are doing. So great to see you, GR. Glad you're here. And also thanks to Shane Babka. Shane Babka is a new YouTube sponsor. And as many of you know, Babka, basically my favorite dessert. Pistachio baklava and babka are, I would say, my two favorite non-Argentinian desserts. Argentinian desserts, I think, well, that's a story for another day. Maybe if we get a sponsor, maybe if we get a super chat asking about my favorite Argentinian desserts, I would mention that. But Shane, congratulations for having the last name of truly one of the great desserts in world history, I would venture to say. I don't think that that's hyperbolic in any way. I also want to send a quick thank you to Stout Ninja. Stout Ninja just made a $2 a month pledge on Patreon, putting us at 1,880 if we get 20 more. We started the evening at 1873. We picked up 7 patrons during the live stream, and we are now at 1880. If we get to 1900 by the end of the live stream, I will play, I guess at this point, because it's dragging on a little, I'll play one live game of chess. I may get crushed and it may be hugely embarrassing, but I will do it for you. Jonathan Campbell has sent a $4.99 super chat saying, I'm extremely worried about the midterms. Democrats better not dismiss voting because of the blue wave talk, thinking there will be a major turnout. I am extraordinarily concerned about the 2018 midterms. I think that for the same reason that progressive media has been seeing a little bit of a trailing off of financial support, I've experienced it, a bunch of other shows have experienced it. I think that it is tied to decreased urgency about voting. Turnout in midterms is pathetically low. And I want to take a moment here to address a talking point that is disgustingly destructive when it comes to voting. How many of you have heard the talking point that elections rarely depend on one vote, so therefore my vote makes no difference, so therefore I'm going to stay home? Okay? I think most of us have heard that talking point. That talking point is the epitome of logically fallacious, and I'm going to explain it to you. It's true, right? Rarely does a Senate election, a congressional election, presidential election, rarely does it come down to one vote. But the truth is that a lot of people have that thought. They say, because my vote wouldn't by itself swing the election, I might not vote. If everybody who thought that didn't vote, collectively, those votes would actually have the chance of losing or winning an election. So whenever anybody says to you, elections are never decided by a vote, they are decided by more, so my vote doesn't matter, you say, if everybody who thought that stayed home, that group of people of which you would be a part would lose an election that we could have otherwise won. So do not, under any circumstances, let people get away with that completely bogus talking point. Albert Solis sent a $5 super chat saying, hey, David, how much do you follow Argentinian politics? Are you still keeping up with the story of the murder of Argentinian lawyer Alberto Nisman? I have not kept up with the Nisman story as much over the last few months. I do follow Argentinian politics. I watch news from Argentina on a basically daily basis. Most mornings when I'm preparing the show, I'm actually watching live streams of Argentinian news rather than American news. But, you know, the situation in Argentina, if you think that there's toxic partisanship and divisions in the U.S., you should see within my family in Argentina, there is a rule that politics simply can't be discussed at any family gathering. You can't discuss politics because it's too it's too toxic, and it just doesn't. Everybody has a bad time when politics are discussed, so it's really bad. Let me say thank you to another patron. I want to say thanks to Joshua McConey, or McConey. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but I know that the first name is Joshua, and Joshua has made a pledge of $2 a month. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Joshua. I really appreciate it. We have suffered a decrease in our Patreon platform, and we are doing everything we can to rebuild it. If we get to 1,900 patrons by the end of the night, I will play a quick game of chess just as a preview for the eventual big battle that we will be having at the David Pakman Show. Also want to say thanks to a new member. It's not just patrons who get shout outs. It's new YouTube sponsors and super chatters and new members. I want to say a major thank you to Jake Upton. Jake Upton has recently signed up just in the last few minutes at davidpakman.com/membership. And of course, all supporters are hugely, hugely appreciated, including High Vibes Sound System, who has sent a $1 super chat. Okay, let me talk to you about something. I want to get your advice about this. Should we do a long form piece about Jordan Peterson? Okay. And the reason I ask is the following. There is a lot of nonsense to debunk about Jordan Peterson, but at the same time, there are people in our audience who don't like hearing about Jordan Peterson, either because they don't care or because they believe that I have a personal obsession with Jordan Peterson and am jealous of him in some way. I'm not going to become defensive. I would just ask you to give me reason to believe that I am in some way jealous or bitter about Jordan Peterson. I think that the guy is full of a lot of really bad ideas, and I think that, well, I've talked about the intellectual dark web, but we get a lot of requests for a long form about Jordan Peterson, and I get a lot of requests never to talk about Jordan Peterson. So I don't know, maybe this would be something for I don't even know how to do it. Make a pledge on Patreon of $1.01 if you want the Jordan Peterson thing, and pledge $1.02 if you don't want the Jordan Peterson thing. I don't know. I don't even know if you can do pennies on Patreon. Saridi Ahmed Yahia has sent a $5 super chat saying, "How far will Argentina go in the World Cup?" I'm going to be optimistic and say that Argentina will go all the way and will come away victorious in the World Cup. Do I actually believe that the odds are on their side? Maybe not. But I've got to support my team, and I think that Argentina, it's one game at a time. It's France Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. That's all that has to happen. Then we'll see about the future of the World Cup. Nicholas Shaw is asking me whether I would support a Joe Kennedy 2020 run. Depends who else is running. I think right now 2020 is a distraction. I think that the important thing is to focus on November of 2018. That's it. And I've been saying for a while that I think it's too early. It's premature to talk about 2020. I like Joe Kennedy. I would be open to supporting Joe Kennedy depending on who else runs, because there's people that I like more than Joe Kennedy, and there's certainly people that Joe Kennedy would be my choice over, no doubt about it. But Joe Kennedy, a very interesting politician, and I don't know, the Kennedy, there's this whole cult of personality around the Kennedys. I've never been hugely drawn into it. I know that there are lots of people in our audience who are very, very into the entire sort of Kennedy, what would you call it, milieu, or I don't know what word to use for it. I've never been like a big Kennedy file, but I actually find Joe Kennedy to be a sort of different type of politician than some of the other Kennedys, and I would be interested in seeing his political career develop, but he's not the most progressive guy. So whether I would support him for president depends on what the alternatives are, and I would prefer a real progressive. I just don't think that the guy is progressive in the same sense that a lot of other people are. Couple comments in the chat about what's going on with 4th of July. Are we going to be off for the 4th of July? We are going to be off for the 4th of July. As you know, I think it is very important right now in particular and in general, that staff get time off and that people do things other than just working all the time. So we are going to be taking a couple days off for the 4th of July, and we have content. New content will still be released to the YouTube channel, but there will not be new shows filmed. So, hopefully the puppet masters of world news will not break any news during our break, because otherwise we will be, we'll fall behind, and it wouldn't be good. Al Castle 84 has sent a $4.99 super chat. Says, it's the post-American world here. Yeah, I know. At the beginning of the stream, Al, I was talking about how I have never even joked about, if Bush is reelected, I'll move to Canada. If this or that happens, I'll move here or move there. But there is something tangibly different that I have been experiencing during particularly the last 3 months, the authoritarian slides, the attacks on press freedom, the casual suggestion to just ignore the Constitution and deport certain people detained at the border with absolutely no due process. Now the ability for Donald Trump, the opportunity for Donald Trump to appoint another Supreme Court justice. I have actually started thinking, should I look at maybe spending most of the next few years in Argentina, where I could because I was born there? Should I look at spending the rest of the next few years in Israel, which is really the only other place I could go from a legal perspective? Because it's not about hyperbole and it's not about making a political statement. It's getting really bad. And I know that being in Massachusetts, I'm somewhat insulated from it because we are in Massachusetts, one of the most progressive states in the country, but it is really becoming concerning in a way that I think is very different than much of what we saw, certainly under George W. Bush. And I'm by no means romanticizing the Bush administration. Want to say thanks to another new member. Jay McFarlane has become a member at davidpakman.com/membership. Jay, thank you. Thank you sincerely. Thank you for becoming a member. I really, really appreciate it. You can also save 40% off of your membership if you use the coupon code VOTESOON18. Izzy Sanchez Jr. is asking, with the amount of humanitarian crises created under this administration, how many administrations would it take to fix the mess Trump has made? Yeah. So early in the Trump administration, I made the point that Donald Trump is signing a lot of horrible executive orders. He is ruining our reputation around the world, but he hadn't at that time actually done that much destructive stuff. That has changed, right? Now the tariffs, I don't have to give you the full list. There have actually been completely destructive policies and decisions made by Donald Trump. And the climate decisions particularly could take many presidencies to undo. And some of them simply cannot be undone, right? It's just the time we lose on climate is not time we're ever going to get back. With the ability now to choose Anthony Kennedy's replacement, Donald Trump could do multi-generational damage, or at least transgenerational damage, right? Like beyond the current generation to the next one. So it could take many administrations. Every month that Donald Trump is in the White House, that is more time that that future administrations will have to devote to trying to undo the damage he's done. Saridi Ahmed Yahia has sent another super chat. Thank you. I suggest you read Ibn Khaldun about the rise and fall of empire. If I find an argument in that for the super spending we do on military. That's interesting. I've heard that book mentioned. I don't know much about it, but I will check it out. It sounds like it could be interesting, although I've gotten really, really picky about what books I read, because I read this interesting piece not that long ago about how you can only read a limited number of books in your life, and I think we all sort of know that intuitively, but the article really made the case that if you start a book and you get 50 pages in and it's not doing it for you, there's no shame in leaving it, that you should be really sort of thoughtful in terms of which books you select, because it's a commitment, and you've only got time for a certain number of books. So I have definitely become pickier than ever when it comes to what books I read. Okay, I think that there are some people who have made Streamlabs contributions, even though we've sort of moved again from Streamlabs. So let me just check that out, because I don't want to miss anybody if they have made contributions. Just one. Okay, so Yesenia. Yesenia says, Joe Kennedy just endorsed progressive Amar Kampa. Do you think Ben Jealous and Alexandria Cortez's win influenced his endorsement? Maybe. I'm not sure about that. I don't know that much about the dynamics of sort of Joe Kennedy's political posturing, so I'm not sure, Yesenia. Brandon Roach has sent a $1 super chat, and I very, very much appreciate that as well. Thanks to everybody who joined me. That is it for this live stream. If people get in touch and say they like the live stream, if I get comments through Patreon or membership that people are signing up because of the live stream, I am ready, willing, and able to go back to regular live streams. As I said at the beginning, I kind of stopped because interest seemed to be waning. But if the interest is back, I will be back. And before I go, Ingy Bingy 2000 sent a super chat saying, you ever get a treat from my cousin's food truck, the Cookie Monster? Best cookie you'll find in Boston. I have not heard of it. I have not visited it, but I will look it up, Ingy Bingy. Sounds interesting. All right, I'll see everybody soon.